Summary of World War Z by Max Brooks. It consists of a collection of interviews conducted by people from all over the world who were involved in the battle in some way. These interviews have been collected into a book by the narrator, who wishes to preserve these experiences in order to try to avoid a disaster of this kind from happening again. The storyteller works for the UN after the war to write a report about it and does interviews all over the world for it. But when the report comes out, he is let down to see that it has been highly edited and that a lot of the information he had put in has been taken out. When he talks to the head of the post-war commission report about this, she tells him that his version had too many emotions and opinions, and that they only wanted facts in the report. The narrator doesn't agree with her. He says that the human factor is what links people to the past, and the story would be meaningless without it. If the narrator really thinks this, the chairperson tells him to write his own book about the war, which is what he does. That book is World War Z. The person telling the story says that this book of memories is mostly made up of the stories of the people he met. The narrator meets an old Chinese doctor named Kwang Jingshu in the first chapter, which is called Warnings. The doctor tells the narrator about his experience with Patient Zero, a 12-year-old boy in a small town who got the virus and turned into a zombie. The doctor was shocked by his strange symptoms. The locals told Kwang that the boy had gone diving into a dam and came up with a bite on his foot. This made Kwang think that there were probably already other cases of the virus that hadn't been reported. Kwang called his friend Gu, who worked at the Institute of Infectious Diseases, to tell him about Patient Zero. Gu sounded worried right away, which suggests that he knew about this virus. After a short time, men in hazmat suits showed up, took Patient Zero and the other locals he had bitten, and put Kwang in jail. In the next parts, the narrator shows how the Chinese government's harsh punishments for infected people made the people of China fear, which caused many to leave the country and spread the virus all over the world. The virus got into Kyrgyzstan from Chinese refugees, and that's where the Canadian military met zombies. The people above them told them they had PTSD when they told them about it. A lot of powerful people wouldn't believe stories of zombies, which helped the virus spread quickly. The first major attack by a group of zombies happened outside of Cape Town, South Africa. Doctors didn't know what to think, so they thought it might be a form of rabies, which is how the virus got its name, African rabies. Israel was the first country to really pay attention to news about the virus. A spy named Jürgen Warmbrunn tells the reporter that this is likely because they are always on guard because they have a fear of extinction. Warmbrunn and his American friend Knight wrote a report that was sent to governments all over the world warning them of the coming zombie danger. This report became known as the Warmbrunn-Knight Report. Warmbrunn says that the crisis might not have happened if more countries had read the study. This was Israel's voluntary quarantine plan to keep its people safe. The rest of the world laughed at this choice. The next chapter is called Blame, and it has interviews that try to solve the question of how the problem got so bad, especially in the United States. The director of the CIA, Bob Archer, says that those were very political years at work and that the government used the CIA as political pawns, which made many bright agents decide to quit in anger. Archer was sent to Buenos Aires as a punishment when he tried to talk to his bosses about the zombie problem because they didn't want to hear about any problems. In the next part, General D'Ambrosia says that the American people, not just the government, were against an all-out attack on the zombies because they were afraid of war and would never back the idea. As people in the US became more afraid of getting the virus, Breckinridge Scott saw a business chance and started selling a rabies vaccine to keep people from getting it. The government backed him up because it wanted to keep the people quiet and made a lot of money in the process. The next part, The Great Panic, is about the years of fear and desperation when a lot of zombies started to attack people and cause trouble in countries around the world. Gavin Blair used to fly a blimp in the United States. He talks about the sad things he saw from the sky, like cars stuck in traffic on interstates and hordes of zombies walking through them. They attacked and ate everyone they came across. When the people they killed died, they came back to life and turned into zombies too. A lot of people tried to get away on ships, but they didn't know that zombies could live in water. Some parents were so scared that they tried to kill their kids so that they wouldn't turn into zombies. It caused political problems and even a nuclear war between Iran and Pakistan because of all the people who had to leave their homes. It was shocking to the US Army that their bombs and rockets didn't do much damage to the zombies at the Battle of Yonkers when they tried to fight them. Some of them were damaged by the explosions, but most of them kept going through the fires. There were so many zombies coming at them that the soldiers were too scared to quietly aim at them. They knew that the only way to kill them was to shoot them in the head. A lot of troops were killed, and the ones who were left had to run away. The next part is called Turning the Tide, and it talks about the small wins people had over zombies. People were able to do well thanks to the Rediker Plan, which was named after the South African who came up with the idea of making a zombie-proof safe zone in every country. The government and some people would go to the safe zone. A lot of people were left outside the safe zones as bait, and because the safe zones weren't big enough to fit everyone. Many people thought the plan was cruel because it left large groups of people behind, but it was the only option at the time. German soldier Philipp Adler was so mad that he was told to carry out this plan and leave people behind that he wanted to kill the general who told him to do it. But by the time he got to the general, he found that the general had killed himself out of guilt. A Ukrainian soldier named Kondratyuk talks about how their team used nerve gas to find people who were sick. The zombies came back to life and were easy to shoot, but sadly, everyone who wasn't affected died. The next movie is Home Front USA, which is about the American attack against the zombies. Sinclair, who was in charge of the Department of Strategic Resources, talks about how they taught refugees in the safe zone useful wartime skills on the job and used old things to make tools and weapons. Volunteers who worked as neighborhood security teams helped keep zombies out of the safe areas. To boost mood and give people hope that they could beat the zombies, the famous director Roy Elliott made documentaries that were light and happy. Around the world, and above, the next part is about the fight outside of the US. David Allen Forbes, a British artist, talks about how many people on the continent were safe from zombies in old houses. Bharati Palshagar worked for Radio Free Earth, an international, multilingual radio station that sent survival tips and news to countries all over the world. Hand-to-hand fighting with thousands of zombies was how Sensei Ijiro killed them in Japan. Some people in the Chinese Navy didn't agree with the army's bad plans, so they made a rebel force. A nuclear bomb was used to destroy the bunkers of the Politburo, and then the Rediker Plan to save the country started. The astronauts on the International Space Station also helped win the war by keeping satellites in good shape and fixing them when they broke. Near the end of the section, the UN passes a resolution to attack the zombies and wipe them out totally. The next part, Total War, talks about the full-on war against the zombies. An American soldier named Todd Wainio talks about how they won the Battle of Hope. They were happy about the war because the US Army had won a big battle against the zombies. There were also diverse and special suits sent by the US Navy to kill zombies on the ocean floors. In Russia, the army wasn't as well organized, and many troops were bitten during each attack. They had to be shot before they could come back to life. Thousands of soldiers also died in Paris while clearing out the tunnels under the city. During the war, Todd Wainio tells the reporter that the US lost a lot of people, but not as many as some other countries. In the last chapter, Goodbyes, some people are happy that the war is over. There is a storyteller who tells Kwang Jing-shu that he likes how kids born after the war aren't always scared. He is sure that the world and China will get better quickly. Since Sinclair is now the head of the SEC, he is also hopeful that the economy will soon be in good shape. Some figures, on the other hand, are not as optimistic about the future. Hendrik's parents died in the outbreak, and she thinks she will always be unhappy and angry about it. Philipp Adler is still mad that he had to leave civilians to the zombies and says that by doing so, people lost their respect and integrity. Todd Wainio tells the narrator that he is still having episodes because of stress. He had been fighting for so long that he had forgotten what peace meant.
About the author. Brooks was born in Manhattan, New York City, on May 22, 1972. He had trouble reading and writing as a child. Brooks was so focused on writing a short story when he was 12 that his mother said he would become a writer. After studying history in college and then going to film school, Brooks worked as a writer for Saturday Night Live. His first book, The Zombie Survival Guide, had sold by then. After that, he wrote World War Z, which came out in 2006. Paramount Pictures bought the movie rights to the book, and Brad Pitt both acted in and produced the 2013 movie. The book was also turned into a video game in 2019. Brooks has said that he has anxiety, and his own in-depth study into how to be ready for disasters shows up in his writing. He has participated in an Army weapons of mass destruction exercise and been a fellow at West Point's Modern War Institute due to his extensive studies. Brooks has written a number of other books since World War Z. These include Devolution, a first-hand account of the Rainier Sasquatch Massacre, which is about Bigfoot, and Minecraft, The Island, which is a story based on the popular video game.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.